The sound of Cambridgeshire.
With everything you need to start your day.
BBC Radio Cambridgeshire.
12 minutes past 7, good morning. Now, disabled people in Cambridgeshire say the next government needs to work on better care, better accessibility and better representation. Some of the responses to the BBC's Your Voice, Your Vote campaign come from people worried about the level of support available for those with impairments or accessibility needs. Liz Owen founded the group Access in St Neots and campaigns to make the town more inclusive. She's also one of the nominees in this year's BBC Radio Cambridgeshire Make a Difference Awards in the Great Neighbour category. Liz, good morning and congratulations on that nomination.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. Tell us a little bit about your group Access in St Neots and how you came to set it up.
Okay, so I am disabled myself. I'm a wheelchair user with multiple different disabilities. And when I moved to St Neots 10 years ago, I didn't really realise the struggle that everybody else was having, the same as me, and quite often that's the case. And so I thought, this isn't acceptable. So I thought I need to set up something where everyone can come together and share their views and their problems, because it's just me with my issues, but there's multiple other people with many issues such as carers and people with different impairments that I don't have. And so collectively, the aim is to provide not just awareness, but actually make physical changes in St Neots. So it's that's the aim of the group.
What kind of physical changes would really make a difference for you and for some of your fellow members?
Well, better access into shops. Some of the shops in St Neots, although St Neots is quite a historical town with older buildings, some of the changes that have been made already are things like step-free access or having ramps, and some of the cases where you can't put those changes in place is to have awareness for the businesses. So things like I've been running a doorbell scheme through Access in St Neots where businesses have a doorbell on the outside with a window sticker saying disabled access, please ask for assistance, knowing that shop is friendly, they're helpful, and those kind of things. We've also currently got a changing places being built in St Neots from the campaigning of my group. So that's going to be a massive, massive change. And we've also got the town council and the district council on side to make changes to pavements and lowered curbs as well. So that will also be a huge difference, hopefully. But there's still lots and lots to do.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of the things that you've managed to achieve, and that's a pretty long list, isn't it? You've managed to achieve through collaboration and discussion with different organisations within the town. I mean, in the run-up to the general election, do you need that government intervention to make things happen? Would it help?
Oh, it really would. You can have as many voices as you want, but then ultimately the people at the top are the ones that have got the ability to make changes, and we find that quite a lot. To get into any kind of discussions with the people at the top, you have to have petitions and thousands of signatures and things like that. So I always look, and all of our group always looks at, what each party has to offer and things like that. So it's, really, really important because even though we feel like we can make an impact, government has massive responsibility to implement changes and things like that. So it's super important.
And what kind of changes could a government implement that you think would really help?
I think definitely making some things currently there is an Equality Act, but businesses basically have to make reasonable changes. So if they've made an effort to make a reasonable change, that's seemed to be okay. But I'd love it if it could be made the law. So basically, if you haven't made any changes at all, or you're unwilling to make changes, that you could be fined, things like that. And also if the government can have more disabled MPs, that would be amazing, because there was one or two, but I'm aware that, there's not enough. And it's also, you need people with lived experience, because you can't put people in charge who make changes, especially with some organisations. You've got people making really important changes that will have life-changing impact on a lot of disabled people, but they have no idea that what they're saying could really, really affect people, and they don't have the experience of the frustrations, or especially from a carer's side of things as well. I know some MPs and political people do have some kind of family experience, but to have the actual experience yourself makes a massive difference. And I think that would really help in everything, from things like healthcare to transport to schools to work, everything. Like, it would make a huge difference. And we
just some stats on that. I mean, 23% of our adult population in this country has some kind of disability, and in the last Parliament, just 1% of MPs registered a disability. Wonder why? Why do you think that is, that there were literally 5 MPs in the last Parliament who had a registered?
I think there's a few things, but the main thing is the kind of attitude from others and the accessibility of it, because I'm aware that, for example, Parliament itself is actually a fairly accessible place if you visit it, but to work there, I imagine, is quite tricky, because at one stage they actually axed the disability minister and didn't replace them for quite a while, and they didn't realise the impact that would have. And now we do have a disability minister. They don't have a disability themselves, and for me, I would be kind of very, not untrusting, but kind of along that path of, you've not had the lived experience, and you get so many, still the attitude of people who don't have kind of a disability themselves or know somebody very close to them, because everything is kind of, it's so hard to get through barriers. Even things like travelling into London, like for a disabled person, it's still, and it shouldn't be, really hard. So even the physical kind of attending Parliament is almost near impossible. And it's, there's still a lot of old-fashioned attitudes. And actually a lot of the parties haven't prioritised things. So some would have, say, for example, at the moment, they have, the kind of manifestos for the elections and stuff. They'll have accessible print, they'll have like large print manifestos and braille and things like that. Some of the parties haven't even bothered, so I don't know kind of how you kind of, small things really make a difference. So if they've even acknowledged the fact that they know that people need these extra things put in place, really makes a difference. And as somebody who, say, if I wanted to go into London to visit Parliament or to go and take a petition or something, I would be having to plan well in advance. And it's so many things that they don't seem to realise is still an issue. They'll say, they'll make changes to things like access to work and things like that, but they haven't thought about, things like it's still really hard to travel in any form on transport for disabled people. Things like the attitude of some workplaces is still really old-fashioned, it's really tricky, and especially there's a lot of stuff around invisible disabilities as well. I know in the past MPs have had that, and I don't think that people have realised, because it's, you don't really want to have a label in your head saying I am disabled. It's like you should be treated equally, and it's really, really unfortunate, because I think a lot of the problem is that it should be, in my head, and in an ideal world, if I had a wish list, that everyone was treated the same, regardless of their disability. And so when you're thinking of things like building new buildings or creating new transport, the disabled facilities should already be part of the plan.
Yeah, they shouldn't be an added bolt on, Liz. I think I get where you're coming from. So many interesting issues that you've raised there, not least just how the nuts and bolts of making laws and getting to Parliament and getting petitions to Parliament could be hindering progress in this area and could be hindering, governments from making better policy for disabled people. So sorry to interrupt, Liz, but we will have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Liz Owen, who founded the group Access in St Neots, campaigns to make the town a more inclusive place and is a nominee in BBC Radio Cambridgeshire's Make a Difference Awards this year. We'll be hearing a little bit later from a spokesperson from a charity that helps people with cerebral palsy, who's been really digging into the different party manifestos